I have a Brenton Septuagint here. And Jace, being that you're in school studying the scriptures, I'm sure you're aware that the Septuagint was translated uh, from the Hebrew language into the Greek over
Most certainly.
250 years before the King James was even done, or actually 250 BC, somewhere like that, long time ago. And let me
Oh yeah,
read
I read the
Isaiah.
Septuagint.
Let me read Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6 from the Septuagint, older version. It says, "For a child is born to us, and a son is given to us, whose government is upon his shoulder, and his name is called the messenger of great counsel. For I will bring peace upon the princes and health to him." That's it. There's no mention of mighty God and everlasting Father. That was people, like I said, when you look at this New Testament, you're going to find that these church authorities during these ecumenical councils, they went back and doubled back. They added and they subtract to the scriptures. And we know what Yah says about adding to his word and subtracting from it. You are not to do that. Okay, we are commanded not to do that. But that didn't mean that people didn't tamper with this book. And while the King James Version is the version that I use, okay, and I would encourage people to do the same thing, to read the book, I'm not going to sit here and even tell you that it hasn't been tampered with. Even in the book of remembrance, so-called Old Testament, it has been tampered with. But you have to understand where the tampering took place. And only when you obey Yah's commandments faithfully, follow his laws, commandments, statutes, and judgments, and honor him and him alone, will he start revealing to you where the tamperings and the traps, what took place.
So, Jace, you're up,
Yeah,
my man.
of course. With my brother BenaYHWH, man, I read the Septuagint. I love the Septuagint. I even read the Apocrypha, my brother. I love those writings. But you mentioned how you're reading out of the Septuagint here. Can you read for me real quick Isaiah 7:14? Just Isaiah 7:14 real quick.
Let's see if I can find it. Isaiah 7:14.
Yeah, Isaiah 7:14.
Yeah, I understand where you're going. Let's see. Isaiah 7:14. 7:14. Let's see. And they shall. Let's see. Wait a minute. Make sure I got the right thing here. Okay, hold on. Isaiah 7:14. Let's see. Man, Isaiah. Yeah. Let's see. Hold on,
Here,
buddy.
just go ahead and read it, and maybe you can tell me what the Septuagint reads.
Uh-huh.
All right. So this King James Version, this is, "Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel." And I've looked through the ecumenical councils, and it turns out that the Septuagint right here uses the word virgin, and the Hebrew manuscripts uses the word maiden, right? So you use the Septuagint right here. Is that's what it says, right?
Well, I know it says that in the King James Version, but you got to understand also when it says that word virgin, that doesn't mean the word virgin as we know it today, meaning someone who hasn't had intercourse. It does mean a person of marriageable age, a young maiden, a young woman, and the woman that gave birth to Emmanuel was Isaiah's wife. See, Isaiah's children was given to him for signs and wonders. You can read about that in Isaiah chapter 8. Okay, it mentions that his children were given for signs and wonders. He had children, one named Meher Shahazbaz, which means that the spoil hastens, the prey speeds up. He had one named Sherjesha, which means a remnant shall return. And that's in Isaiah 8:20. Isaiah 8:20 says, "Speak if they speak not according to this word." But if you read in the book of Isaiah in chapter 8, I think it's verse 18. Let me turn to that. I got my books here. But it says that his children were given for signs and wonders in the earth. And even with that particular birth, Emmanuel was his son. See, this was a sign. I didn't get into it because I knew we were going to be pressed for time. But this was a sign for Ahaz, this quote unquote virgin birth that the New Testament mentions. This is a sign for Ahaz. You could read about that if you read the entire chapter of Isaiah chapter 7. Ahaz wouldn't ask a sign, okay? And he was said, well, because you won't ask a sign will be given unto you. Behold, a child shall be born, the young woman will conceive, and she shall name his son Emmanuel, and butter and honey shall he eat all the days of his life.
Will she be a virgin, BenaYH?
That was Isaiah's wife. She wasn't a virgin in the sense that we understand it. They used the word virgin. The original word was alma, which basically means a young woman who's like marriageable age, but a young woman. Bethula is the Hebrew word that basically means a virgin, someone who has never had intercourse. So, but for whatever reason, the translators of this book went with the term virgin. You understand? Like I say, it takes research, and I didn't want to confuse a lot of people, but I got to make that clear since he brought that up. This was a prophecy for Ahaz. This wasn't a prophecy talking about JC in the future. Keep in mind, guys, read Jeremiah chapter 31 and start in verse 30. What does Yah say? Yah says that no man can die for another man's sins. He says that also in Ezekiel chapter 18. The first person that tried to take the place of people paying for a penalty was Moses. Moses in Exodus chapter 32, I think it was chapter 32, Moses tries to take the place of Israel by saying, look, forgive these people. And if not, man, just blot me out. And we see what Yah said to him. He said, whoever sins against me, that man will I blot out. And Yah said unto Moses, this is Exodus chapter 32 and verse 33. He answered, and Yah said unto Moses, whosoever has sinned against me, him will I blot out of my book. Yah of hosts is not in the business of punishing someone in the place of somebody else. Okay. Yes, there are generational curses. Okay. There are generational curses. If I'm not connected to Yah and I teach my children ignorance and they're not keeping the laws, of course, they're going to be cursed too. The curse is going to be passed down like that. Generational curses. But to say that my son is going to pay the price for something I did, okay, you sacrifice your life and I'll forgive your father. The Most High is not about that, not at all. And he says that in several places throughout the book of remembrance. So that just knocks out JC right off the top. There's no need for him to even be born, because in Jeremiah chapter 31, and we read in verse 30, it says right here, it says, where is it? But everyone shall die for his own iniquity. Every man that eateth the sour grape, his teeth shall be set on edge. Now he says further about this new covenant. But what is the new covenant? That the new covenant that he will make with the house of Israel after these days, says Yah, verse 33, I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their mighty one, and they shall be my people. You have to read this book. You have to understand the law. Yah is not in the business of accepting the sacrifice of humans. Okay, now we don't have much time, but I had a lot of scriptures on that that I was going to touch on. But also, check this out really quickly. Read Jeremiah 7, verse 31. Read Jeremiah chapter 19, verse 5. Yah says the thought of human sacrifice never even entered into his mind. Never even entered into his heart or his mind. He's not into that. So to think that all of a sudden he decided that he's going to change his mind, and let's face it, if you believe JC is God, then you're telling me that God gave people laws that he knew they couldn't keep. So in order to not punish them for laws that he gave them that he knew he couldn't keep, he would in effect sacrifice himself, belittle himself, and get abused and beat up and smitten, okay? And then to forgive people for laws that he gave them that he knew he couldn't keep in the first place.
Jace, do you believe that Jesus is God?
Oh, 100%. Okay. In fact, I wanted to go back to Isaiah 7:14, and I believe that we should take every word. So you got onto me earlier about Daniel chapter 9 and how I didn't use the verse how you wanted me to use it. However, in Isaiah 7:14, it says, and behold, a virgin. Now, you you start debating what this word virgin is, but your own Septuagint upholds the fact that this is a woman who never knew a man. Now, in the later part of that verse, it says his name shall be called Emmanuel. What does Emmanuel mean? It means God with us. It means God with us. And as far as I know, one, Isaiah never had a son named Emmanuel, neither did Ahaz, and two, it was never God with them in the first place.
Oh yes, well, how much time do we have? Because we can get into but I know we have to wrap up the show. But I apologize. I didn't touch on everything that I wanted to touch on because we had to take callers. That's the nature of the show. This is your show. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, and I didn't want to appear rude.
And you haven't, and I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that. This thing has been held with a lot of respect. And I appreciate the callers and everybody. But let me just say this, guys, and I mean this with all sincerity. The only way to determine what is a lie is if you know what the truth is. And I would encourage everybody, read that book of remembrance from Genesis to Malachi. And I don't mean just skip around in it. Read it. Read it like a book. Because Yah tells us that his laws will stand forever. We know his laws will not be abolished. If you read the New Testament, Paul tells you quite a few times, well, that's old. Well, that vanishes away. Well, we're not under the law. And that's what causes confusion. People take that stuff and they run with it. People say JC, was a perfect sacrifice. Well, first of all, he was human. Secondly, he was beaten up and blemished. Thirdly, he lied a couple of times. He literally lied. When they asked him, he told people, now this isn't anything to take light. When you think about it, he actually told someone in Matthew chapter 10, verse 23, ye shall not have gone over the cities of Israel till the Son of Man be come. In other words, he told his followers, look, go preach, do this. If they don't accept you, that's okay. Just go to the next house, because by the time you've gone over the cities of Israel, I'll be back before you even come back from doing that. Also, read Matthew chapter 16, verse 28, Luke chapter 9, verse 27, and ask yourself, are these people still alive? Because JC that said that the generation would not even pass, or that they will see him coming in the clouds of glory. And that was how long ago? Over 2,000 years? These people aren't still alive. JC he's a fraud. If you read that book of remembrance, you will see what a fraud he is. I want to at least get that out. I have a lot of information here, but we don't have time. But I do appreciate the time that I was given here. So thank you very much for that.